Hey, thanks for coming in here to KARE 11 Plus. This is your 15-minute weather edition. We can nerd out a little bit more. We can talk, and I'm actually going to rewind the radar from that storm Saturday night into Sunday and kind of go through what really happened. Now, obviously a scary situation here with the EF1 tornadoes in both Waconia or Victoria. Maybe you didn't know that. Again, the National Weather Service did confirm that. Well, this is very close to my house, and I was updating this. I was trying to give as many updates as I could for the storm, and then I kind of fell asleep. Woke up to a tornado on the ground, so I had to shake it off. But I did do a Facebook Live. You know, I think a good way to do this, I think you should get KARE 11 Plus. Obviously, you have it. You're watching. We're on KARE 11 Plus during this. If you guys want a double way to get information, I'm always going to make sure that I feel like the community's protected. So if I feel like, I'll give as much info as I need. I did a Facebook Live at like midnight to kind of let everybody know what's going on, because I think it's kind of, sometimes the first initial thing is to look at your phone. At least if I'm on Facebook Live, there's some information. So go ahead, you follow me at Meteorologist John Ziegler if you'd like, in the next time we have storms like this. Unless I'm in Canada fishing, that might be tough. That might be the only week. So let's talk about this a little bit. So we did have the reports. You had two of them. It ended up only turning into one report here because the tornado was on the ground so long that this was one report. I think it ended up coming in at 4 tornadoes total, where when we looked at the prelim data, it was 6 tornadoes in Carver County. So this is Waconia here on Highway 5. Now, if you know Waconia, most people live in the town south. So most of the town was spared, but we did get hit very hard on the north side. Now, I boat the actual Island View Golf Course. You can see it's right there. Then right here is actually the access point where we put our boat in, but the tornado went just north of that. And there was a ton of damage. Massive trees down, docks flipped, and it was tough. We never really got visual confirmation of it. I never saw an actual visual confirmation, but definitely a tornado. EF1, this thing got rated at 95 miles per hour, so that is enough to pretty much knock all the trees down. Then there was technically a little break in the tornado, and then it went back to the ground. And the reason we know this happened is the National Weather Service, they go out and they actually survey this entire area and determine how many tornadoes there were and the speed, the wind speed of these storms. So you don't have to have an actual visual in moment of it happening. You could see after aftermath, unfortunately, and you can determine what it was. And they have criteria for all this stuff. So they know a 100-mile-an-hour wind does X amount of damage. They know a 120-mile-an-hour does X amount of damage. So they have this down to the 5-mile-per-hour wind on how much damage is done to even the trees. So this is Victoria. We have one along Highway 7. If you guys are in Minnetrista, this was very close to you here. Think about the Macintoons right here, the new Macintoons. This went right along just north of Victoria. Actually, a kind of a rural spot here where it went over, but it did go over some lakes. Again, we had a couple of lakes with tons of docks flipped over. Again, had some great video sent to us from, I think it was Lake Zumbra, and that was in Victoria right when it went over this lake. We did get some tons of video of just docks just destroyed. Really, I hate it. I really do. I hate seeing your community destroyed, but you know, I was happy that at least the alerts worked and everybody was safe, although there is a lot of help. So if you live in this stretch down in Carver County, help your neighbor out. I'm going to rewind this thing. I think I had it saved to where I could go back. So I got to step off camera because I can't use the clicker for this, but we're going to go back in time and we're going to see what this looks like. So here we go. We're going to go well, here's tonight. Here's last night. Look at storms, weekend, all the way through. Let's go all the way back. Here you go. There, a little bit different here, huh? So these are the supercells when they developed here. I'll be able to pause it right here. So Saturday at 6 o'clock, these were tornadic on their own. There was a very large tornado actually on that supercell. You know, some of the most classic supercells. The Dakotas gets phenomenal looking supercells. Perfect individual tornadoes. If you haven't seen them, there's some amazing video out there. Again, that was in the Dakotas, very close to Minnesota. So what happened here is we knew this would turn into a line. Now, did I see this turning into a full-fledged QLCS? I did not see it getting this strong. You always want to be prepared for it. That is what happened. So you had supercells turn into a line and then they bowed out. And when you get a bow, what's happening is we have something called bulk shear. It's a wind direction just above the surface. And if it goes perpendicular perfectly with that the surface thunderstorm, it can give you an extra pump, and that is what happened with these storms, if you want the actual scientific reasoning. But this is the beginning of this thing at 6:30. You had the supercell thunderstorms. Then we go to 7, 8. Now you see what's happening. Now you're starting to see nasty, still tornado warnings on here. Started turning into more of a wind threat. I remember this time I was watching every hour, 7, 8 o'clock. Again, we had the wind threat. And then as we went to the more like 9, it kind of looked a little interesting. I was like, oh, maybe 10 o'clock. I was like, okay, the line's a little bit broken. We got this one in the south. But how you look at this, okay, this is how I actually do analysis on these things. So this is what we call linear to the bulk shear. So this, if it's coming in like this, that's not gonna have the stronger winds. Once it goes like this is called perpendicular to the bulk shear. I'm always looking for this area here. But if you look at the 10 p.m. time slot here on Saturday, this was linear. So to me, I actually went to bed at this point. I did. Because I was like, yeah, I don't see anything showing up here where it bows out. Right? Because the linear part looked nasty, and it's a nasty thunderstorm, but unlikely to produce tornadoes. So we continue on. This was 10. I fell asleep on the couch. Now all of a sudden you got this right here. We'll pause it right here. Now all of a sudden you've got this showing up here. Now this didn't look that good at this moment, but it actually started to interact with that bulk shear. And you have linear, but you started having this perpendicular. When you hear us talk about the bowing part of it, that's what we're talking about. So we're going to continue on with this. Looks like it was actually that other one that punched. Right? It punched right there. I'm going to zoom in here. So here we go. Sorry, this is the first time. I got to turn off lightning. Okay, there we go. Now, this was zoomed in now, and this is what happens. So this stuff here, Maple Grove, Lino Lakes, this is linear. That is perpendicular. You don't see this when you guys are, if you want to learn radar, start learning that the ones that go north to south will intersect better than the ones that are going east to west. And it's not that these aren't strong thunderstorms. And the biggest misconception, I think, with the public is that they'll be like, why didn't we get a warning for this thunderstorm? Because I'm like, well, you had a 50-mile-per-hour wind. It didn't do any damage. Or it broke down some branches. We're not looking at that. So this stuff here, this was torrential rain was the factor here. This was training thunderstorms. So two very different thunderstorms, right? One trains, non-severe. Well, it's probably severe, but in my opinion, we're talking about multiple tornadoes. Very, very different. So this one trains. So the training thunderstorms are typically low-end severe storms, which that one was. This one goes like this. Well, you're not going to get much rain, but you're going to get a tornado. So pick and choose. And again, the reason for this, there is a scientific reason. You don't see the bulk shear. But the bulk shear, low levels of the atmosphere, when they run into it perpendicular, you can imagine it. It's like, think about it like friction. If you run it into it, it spins it. If it's going perpendicular, it's not going to spin it. So that's why it's like this. Now, a couple other things I'm looking at here. Never good when you see that. That is a notch in the bow line. Notches in the bow line typically show inflow and they show the tornado. And that is what you saw here on radar at this exact moment. This is a pretty classic setup. So we're going to keep going as this moved into Waconia. I mean, talk about a classic look here. Now we're at 12:30 when this was on Highway 7. So this is your tornado. This is the inflow. So if I was examining this live on air, I would talk about the inflow of this and the notch out ahead of it. And then you also see another one up here. There was swirls all over the place, but that is really what you look for in this line of storms. You're looking for that notch, you're looking for that bow, and you're looking for something perpendicular. Sorry, it's as far out as I can go. Do you notice what I'm seeing here too when I get back on that scan at midnight? I mean, pretty clear as day here. That is the actual tornado. You have a notch here. You've got a notch here. Now, if I'm looking at this and examining this in real time, I'm not going to be able to say, well, I probably could because the velocities were pretty clear here. This is how you get an observed tornado on radar, right? You've got the inflow, you've got the notch, you've got another notch. There's obviously a concern here towards the top. Once you get north, this is not tornadic. So we know that because, yeah, okay, there are notches, doesn't matter. We know when it's linear like this, linear means west to east, right? Then it's we're not concerned about any of that stuff. You're looking at that perpendicular to the bulk shear, bowing line with notches. Okay, notch, that's a problem near Watertown. Notch, this is more of a problem. I can't show you velocities on this, but you could see that is the actual tornado now that we see it. And it rolled right over Highway 7 as we went through the morning hours. So there it goes, sorry. It's a little blotchy. Obviously, at this point, still concerning. I mean, very clearly, this was still rotating. This was tornado warned here, as it should have been. And again, you can see, I think as you look at this, it's tornadic spinning, linear, non-severe. So the North Metro should not have had that actual warning from it. But then again, you can see this was notch. Now, we know now back in the past that all the tornadoes were located here in Carver County. And then by the time we went into the overnight hours, it just became less severe. Sorry, I got to roll through. Here you go. At this point, it's not as good looking as it was before as it went into the Metro itself. Turned more into a line, and then we were in the clear at around 12:55, but the damage had already passed. Now, because this had the history of producing a tornado, which we knew there were multiple in here, that's why all of your sirens were going off. Anytime this line produces a tornado, then you know they're going to continue with the warning. So I want you to look at it now at 12:55. Look at this now at 12:55. See how it's really straight up and down? And it's just breaking apart here a little bit. We saw that weakening trend. It was just the perfect strength here in Waconia. What's interesting to me is at this moment here at 11:50, when you go back right before it developed, again, this scan might be a little behind. I think these actually ended up happening at 11:50, but whatever this was, 11:30. I went way in the past, so give the radar some grace here. I think it might be off 20 minutes. But we're looking at this before the tornado developed. I mean, this is actually why I went to bed. I mean, I felt also I'm off work. I mean, I just feel like I'm always working. I just love watching these, but I felt okay. The time was right. It was 11:15, 11:30, and then on this next scan, it just strengthened at that moment. In the movement of this thing was pretty remarkable. You see right there, yeah, it really got going. At this point, you could I love looking at it. You can clearly see the concerning part of the storm. I just think it's cool to show you, like, you might say, wait, there's a notch there, there's a notch there, there's a notch there. Isn't that a little tornado? No, linear concern. And that's when that got warned. It just happened so fast. There wasn't a ton of warning because, as I showed you, again, remember, this is probably 20 minutes delayed. This was probably more 11:45 at this moment. Maybe 11:35, actually, even. Because I was thinking I was on my porch at around 11:40. Nonetheless, that happened quick because the scan before it wasn't there. I'll give you one zoomed out look of this thing, and we'll pull through it here as we'll go through the entire night. So there's the start of this supercell thunderstorms at around 7 o'clock. As this rolled through, looked really not together. And then all of a sudden, you start seeing that line develop. And once it became right there, it's the first time you've got it. I mean, look at that next scan. It just becomes extremely perpendicular. Classic QLCS look here, classic Boeing line look. This is severe. This is not. That's just how it works. This is also probably concerning, but it was too far to the north. Again, this is not. So if I had to pick two on here, I would say that's a concern, not and not. And you can kind of understand how we look at this. But I also think it's important that, this storm developed pretty quickly. I thought the National Weather Service did a wonderful job of alerting us, and I hope you guys learned something here. Hope everybody's okay. I thought it was just good to do a little bit of a rundown on the severe weather that happened over the weekend. We'll see you tomorrow.